Do you want your Powersurge damage to be like this? Well, this video is for you. What's up everyone, this is your guy TG, and for today's video, I'm going to teach you how to increase your Powersurge damage up to 10,000 shock damage. Before anything else, I just wanted to take a moment to sincerely thank each and every one of you for your incredible support.
Thank you, friend.
Whether you've been with me since the beginning or just joined, your time, comments, likes, and shares mean the world to me.
Please, I'm blushing.
Thank you so much guys for the support. I love you all. And without further ado, let's start the guide. So for the gun, we are going to use outer space with heavy style calibration double elemental damage. So the higher the elemental damage, the better. For the mods, we are using static shock talents with substat, elemental damage, damage to great ones, status damage, and damage to normal enemies. So later on, I'll discuss on what substat you should be aiming for when farming mods. For accessories, use this, you can copy it, high balance ability, and increase a bit of accuracy. For secondary weapon, we use wildfire. You can also use bingo as long as both are equipped with vulnerability amplifier. We only use this for marking, so you can use either of the two. For the armor set, we are going to use mayfly goggles, 1 piece lone wolf armor, and 4 pieces of shelterer armor. For helmet, of course, key armor mayfly goggles with deviation expert talent mod with substat, elemental damage, damage to elite enemies, damage to great ones, and status damage. For our mask, I'm using lone wolf mask with thunderclap powersurge suffix, substat powersurge damage, damage to normal enemies, shock damage, damage to elite enemies. For the top, we are using blue flame resonance talents with elemental damage and damage to great one. For pants, we are using abnormal increase talents, substat, elemental damage, damage to great one, status damage, and max HP. For gloves, we are using elemental overload talents, substat, elemental damage, damage to elite enemies, status damage reduction, and damage against great ones. For boots, we are using covered advanced talent, substat, elemental damage, damage great one, damage to elite enemy, and max HP. Now, you might be wondering why your damage is low even if you have the same set of mods that I used. The answer is because we have different substat. In my build, most of my mods have damage to great ones, so that's the number one reason, since all bosses in Silo and monoliths are considered great ones. Now let's dive into what substat you need to look for when farming mods. For weapon and masks, look for Powersurge suffix with substat, Powersurge damage, damage to great ones, damage to elite enemies, and shock damage. If you don't have a Powersurge suffix, just use talents. Also, if your Powersurge suffix mod has a bad substat, just use talent mods with a better substat. Earlier, I showed my weapon mod still in talents because I don't have a better Powersurge mod substat. And for the rest of the armor, it needs to be talent suffix with substats, elemental damage, damage to great ones, damage to elite enemies, and status damage. As you can see, I preferred damage to elite enemy than damage to normal enemy, because with this build, you can easily kill normal enemies since you already have high elemental and status damage. As you can see here, you can actually get 3 gold upgrades and 1 green upgrade on substat if you are very lucky. So for you to be able to achieve this, you need to get the highest roll for the mods, which looks like this. So for example, in here, we have 1 purple, 2 blue, and 1 green. So do not look at the substat because this is not a perfect substat. I'm just showing that this mod is not yet upgraded, but the colors are the highest rolls. If you can have high rolls on mods but not perfect substat, you can actually keep it and use it for mod conversion. So all my mods was obtained by doing mod conversions since my luck and mod farming is really bad.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
And as I've shown earlier, this is what a perfect substat should look like. However, the color is not highest roll, so this mod started with 1 purple, 3 greens, and if you are lucky, you can actually have a maximum of 2 gold upgrades on the subset, just like this one. And for this one, I got a perfect color rolls but not a perfect substat. As you can see, there is a status damage reduction instead of status damage substat, and this mod started with 1 purple, 2 blue, and 1 green. So like what I've said earlier, you can have a maximum of 3 gold upgrades with this roll. Unfortunately, one of the upgrade went to status damage reduction instead of going to elemental damage. For Cradles, just copy this one. You have an extra slot and choose your own preference. Whether you equip Lone Walker for solo or side by side when in group, or just use Sky Operation for faster glide and damage reduction while jumping. Besides mod substat, another reason why my damage is higher is because of PSI intensity. Powersurge damage is based on your PSI intensity, and to increase your PSI, you need to upgrade your armor blueprints. As you can see, most of my armors are at 6 star, with pants being the only one at 5 star. So the trick is, if you have one 6 star armor blueprint, you can actually craft it, then use blueprint conversion to another part, craft it again, and use another conversion to another part. With that trick, you can have all of your armor at 6 star, which will largely increase your PSI intensity. I will now discuss what type of animal skin we used on armors. So for our helmet, I am using Dreamy Rabbit Fur. Increases elemental damage by flat 6%. Take note that our helmet is purple, that's why we can equip a damage buff for animal skin. But if your helmet is gold, you can only get defensive stats from it. So for the mask, I used Lucky Rabbit Fur, so it increases elemental damage by 10% after doing critical hits. For outer space, it is very easy to do critical hits because of the fire rate, and in my experience, as long as I keep on shooting the enemy, I can maintain the buff 100%. So I did not use 2 Lucky Rabbit Fur because it doesn't stack. It will only give an additional 10% even if you use it on helmet and masks. So I've done some tests, and this combination is really the best. For the rest of the armor, it doesn't matter what you use because they don't really give any damage buff. Now for the deviation, we are going to use Mini Feaster. I'd like to thank my friend Kesha for giving me this wonderful Mini Feaster.
My man.
I've tried farming this deviation even in MANIBUS and here in Way of Winter, but the game just does not give me a level 5. Also, this one has growing pains too, which is a very good trait. Thank you again, Kesha. So this deviation gives us 80% status damage within 6 seconds. As long as there's an enemy within the range of its tentacles, can maintain the 80% increase in status damage. Now we are going to do some damage test on the dummy. So in this test, we will just be looking at the highest Powersurge or shock damage dealt in the dummy. Since Powersurge proc is RNG and Thunderclap trigger is also affected by lag. I'm using the same build, so let's see the damage. The highest shock damage is around 4,700. As you can see, my normal enemy damage is just 8%. Damage to Great 1 is at 30% and damage to Elite is at 22.5%. So this is the build I used on running all silo and monoliths, except for the Forsaken Giant since I used WEAKSPOT build for that monolith. Now I'll equip my loadout with increased damage to normal enemy. As you can see, my damage to normal enemy is now at 40%. This is actually 48% if I'm holding my weapon. Now what will happen if I summon my deviation? So here my damage to Great 1 and Elite has increased because of the Cradle, but the damage to normal stays the same. Now I will unsummon my deviation and see the stats. So the bonus damage for Great 1 and Elite is also removed, but the damage to common enemy stays the same. Now let's equip my loadout for normal enemy. As you can see, it's 48%. Let's now test our damage to the dummy. We did the highest damage of 6,300 shock damage. Now we will summon our deviation and see how much damage we can get. As you can see, we did the highest of 8,700 shock damage, and take note that this is without food buff. Now we'll talk about what food should we take to further increase our damage. For hydration, Whimsical Drink is the only option. Take note that you need to use bellflower for bonus dish effect. Another requirement for this build is the Mimetic Specialization Ice Dish Brain Freeze. This will increase the Whimsical Drink magnitude by 30%. Another requirement is a level 5 chefosaurus. It doesn't matter what trait as long as it is level 5. You'll have to make sure that the mood is always high before cooking any dish. So what you're gonna need to do is just place it in the securement unit when you're about to cook your food. Set the activation power to high, deviant power in here. I use 95 so its mood is at max when he is activated. If the mood is high, you can get the maximum 38% buff from Chefosaurus. As you can see, Chefosaurus is now activated. We'll now make our food. I'm going to craft Whimsical Drink. What I do before crafting is I make full sack of salt so that you can summon Chefosaurus in your stove. Because if you craft a dish when Chefosaurus is not yet in cooking animation, you won't be getting the additional buff. This is an example where you cook food without waiting for Chefosaurus. Now I'm going to make the food when he is in an animation. After crafting the food you need, you can cancel the salt to get the materials back. You can also remove Chefosaurus on the securement unit so the mood won't be depleted. Our status damage is at 76.6%. So here you can see that one of the Whimsical Drink is not stacked. It's because that is the one we craft without Chefosaurus buff. I'll first drink the one without the buff. Let's check the status damage. It's now 111.6%. Let's drink the one with Chefosaurus buff. And the status damage is 121.1%. Currently, we have 121.1% status damage, and with the 80% status damage bonus from Deviation buff, we can hit 200% status damage. Now we're done with hydration, let's now talk about energy food buff. What I use on all silo run is a sparkling pumpkin soup. Although the description says hydration, when you consume this, the buff goes to energy. So this one increases Powersurge damage by 10%, so it's a different multiplier. So it's very good since we already have very high status and elemental damage. You can only get the recipe from Way of Winter map. It needs deviated mint, pumpkin, seaweed, and purified water. For other food buff option, you can use mixed fried hot dog. However, you need to mark the enemy to get the additional damage buff. You can also use bone-in deviated sausage to increase your damage against week 1. So now let's try our damage test with food buff. I ate all weather just to refill hunger since both of our food buff only refills hydration. Let's drink Whimsical. Eat pan-fried fish barracuda, which gives us additional 5% PSI intensity, then sparkling pumpkin soup. Now let's do the damage test for complete food buff with Deviation. As you can see, we are able to hit up to 11,000 Powersurge damage. To increase the damage further, you can use the gold SMG bullets. However, one of the materials needed is gold ore, which is very hard to farm in this server. Look at my PSI intensity, currently at 1,330. So after triggering shock damage, it increased up to 1,422. Remember, higher PSI, higher Powersurge damage. Just use it if you have the resources. Now, I will show you the build that I use for Chaos Weaver. I won't be explaining this much because I just made this build for fun. If you use other guns with this set of armors, you will be dealing much more damage than this build. Now for the gun, we are using outer space, of course, with heavy style calibration, double critical damage. So mod is munition amplifier violent, and secondary weapon is wildfire. Vulnerability amplifier for the mods, doesn't matter what you use on your melee. For helmet, we use gas mask with momentum up violent. And for mask, we use lone wolf with targeted strike violent. For gloves, we use steel gloves with critical amplifier violent. And for boots, we use lone wolf with covered advance violent. For the jacket, we use munitions amplifier, weapon damage. And for the pants, we use Deadshot Violet. So just copy the Cradle. It's Deviation Master, Steady Hand, Overload, Tactical Combo, Bounty Hunter, First Round Blast, Anti-Phase, and Status Enhancement. For the weak spot build that I use in Forsaken Giant, so weapon is Heavy Style with double weak spot damage. Mod is Munitions Amplifier, and secondary is Wildfire with Vulnerability Amplifier. Doesn't matter again what melee weapon you use. For helmet, we use Bastille with Precise Strike Precision. For mask, we use a Renegade Mask with Most Wanted Precision. For gloves, we use Bastille Gloves with Munitions Amplifier Precision. And boots on the ground with Covered Advanced Precision. And Renegade Jacket with weak spot damage boost precision, and Renegade pants with 3 strikes precision. So for the Cradle, we are using Deviation Master, Anti-Phase, Overload, Tactical Combo, Lone Walker, First Round Blast, Bounty Hunter, and Status Enhancement. Some of you are asking how my HP is getting healed without using Activator. So it is because of this item, Lightning Impulse Regulator. When in your backpack, upon being struck by lightning, you recover all HP and gain movement speed and PSI intensity. So Secret Servitor Boss has the attack where she covers herself with wings and casts lightning on you. Just be careful not to get hit too fast by that lightning because it will kill you since the heal effect has a 1 to 2 second delay. Also, if you have Mimetic Specialization Stardust Dish Shellbreak, you can craft a Stardust Tea to get that constant HP regen. This dish will heal your sanity, and with Shellbreak Mimetic, you'll get the constant HP regen. You need a deviated cone flour, purified water, and sugar. You can get the recipe from MANIBUS server. To summarize the guide, here are the checklists you need to have. For mods, use talent suffix except for weapon and mask. Again, if you don't have good substat for Powersurge suffix, just use talent. For Powersurge suffix, look for substat Powersurge damage, damage to crit 1, damage to elite, and shock damage. For the priority on substat, make sure to have a max upgrade on elemental and Powersurge damage, or at least have a purple upgrade on them. Next priority is damage to grade 1. With my build, if you reach 30% bonus damage to grade 1, you'll be able to hit the 10k Powersurge damage. Third priority is damage to elite, and your last priority is status damage. Because with this build, you will have a very high status damage, so no need to increase it any further. For deviation, you need a level 5 mini feaster or at least level 4. For food, use whimsical drink and sparkling pumpkin soup. You need a level 5 chefosaurus and mimetic specialization, ice dish, brain freeze. If you're able to finish the checklist, I'm sure you'll be able to hit 8,000 to 10,000 Powersurge damage. Take note that this build is also applicable to MANIBUS server, because the animal skin mechanics on crafting armor is also unlocked in MANIBUS. I hope this guide was helpful to you. If you learned something new today, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more guides like this. If you have any questions or need further clarification, drop a comment down below. I'll be happy to help. Stay tuned for more videos and happy gaming!